Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a one-room log cabin on Sinking Spring Farm in Hardin County, Kentucky, now LaRue County. His parents, Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hanks Lincoln, were farmers of modest means, belonging to the working class of frontier America. Lincoln's ancestry traced back to English and Scots-Irish settlers who had moved to the colonies in the 17th century. His father struggled financially, often facing disputes over land titles, which led the family to relocate multiple times during Abraham's childhood. Abraham's early years were shaped by poverty and the rugged life of the frontier. In 1816, when he was 7, his family moved to southern Indiana due to concerns over land ownership in Kentucky. Life in Indiana was harsh, with long winters, limited resources, and hard labor for survival. Lincoln's mother, Nancy Hanks, died of milk sickness in 1818, a tragic blow for the 9-year-old boy. His father later married Sarah Bush Johnston, a kind and encouraging stepmother who recognized Abraham's intelligence and supported his love for reading and self-improvement. Though formal education was scarce in the rural Midwest, Lincoln was determined to learn. He attended makeshift schools taught by itinerant teachers, but his total classroom time amounted to barely a year. Despite this, he developed a lifelong love for books and knowledge. He read anything he could find, from the Bible to Aesop's fables and biographies of George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. His self-taught education sharpened his critical thinking and deepened his moral sense, laying the foundation for his future leadership. Lincoln's early life instilled resilience, self-reliance, and a deep empathy for ordinary Americans. As a teenager, Lincoln became known for his physical strength and skill in manual labor, which earned him respect among neighbors. He split rails, plowed fields, and helped maintain the family farm. Yet he also developed a keen interest in storytelling, humor, and debate, often entertaining others with witty remarks. This balance between hard work and intellectual curiosity distinguished him from peers. By the age of 21, he was ready to leave home, seeking independence. In 1830, the Lincoln family moved again, this time to Illinois, where Abraham began charting his own course in life. In 1831, Lincoln took his first significant step toward independence when he worked as a flatboatman, transporting goods down the Mississippi River to New Orleans. The journey exposed him to a broader world, including the harsh realities of slavery, which made a lasting impression on him. After returning to Illinois, he settled in the village of New Salem. There, Lincoln took various jobs, store clerk, postmaster, and surveyor, while building a reputation for honesty and reliability. His nickname, Honest Abe, began to circulate, reflecting his straightforward character and fairness in all dealings. Lincoln's time in New Salem also nurtured his interest in politics. In 1832, at age 23, he made his first bid for public office, running for the Illinois state legislature. Although he lost, his campaign revealed his ambition and ability to connect with voters. That same year, the Black Hawk War broke out, and Lincoln volunteered for service in the Illinois militia. He was elected captain by his peers, a position he valued deeply. Although he saw no combat, his leadership experience and growing local reputation paved the way for his political career. By 1834, Lincoln's persistence paid off. He was elected to the Illinois House of Representatives as a member of the Whig Party. He served 4 consecutive terms, gaining a reputation for clear reasoning, eloquent speeches, and a strong moral compass. During this time, he studied law independently, often reading by candlelight late into the night. In 1836, he obtained his law license and began practicing in Springfield, Illinois. Law practice became a vital part of Lincoln's life, sharpening his skills in logic, persuasion, and negotiation, qualities that would later define his political leadership. Lincoln's Springfield years were a period of personal and professional growth. In 1842, he married Mary Todd, the well-educated daughter of a prominent Kentucky family. Mary shared Abraham's political ambitions and offered both encouragement and occasional challenges. Together, they had 4 sons, though only one, Robert Todd Lincoln, lived to adulthood. Lincoln's legal career flourished as he handled cases ranging from property disputes to criminal defense. His work brought him into contact with people from all walks of life, deepening his understanding of human nature and strengthening his reputation as a principled, effective attorney. Although dedicated to his legal practice, Lincoln remained active in politics. In 1846, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, serving a single term. In Congress, he opposed the Mexican-American War, questioning its justification and the expansion of slavery into new territories. This stance was unpopular among some constituents, and Lincoln chose not to seek re-election. Returning to Illinois in 1849, he resumed his law career. For nearly a decade, he stayed out of public office, but growing tensions over slavery would eventually draw him back into the political arena. By the mid-1850s, the national debate over slavery's expansion intensified. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, championed by Senator Stephen A. Douglas, effectively repealed the Missouri Compromise, allowing territories to decide on slavery through popular sovereignty. Lincoln strongly opposed the act, arguing that slavery was morally wrong and incompatible with the nation's founding principles. He re-entered politics, joining the newly formed Republican Party. Lincoln's speeches during this period, especially his Peoria address, articulated a vision of America where freedom, not slavery, defined the country's future. His rising profile positioned him for national leadership. Lincoln's opposition to the Kansas-Nebraska Act reinvigorated his political career. His clear, moral arguments against slavery's spread, combined with his ability to present them in plain language, resonated with audiences across Illinois. In 1858, the Illinois Republican Party nominated him to challenge Senator Stephen A. Douglas for his Senate seat. This campaign became famous for the Lincoln-Douglas debates, a series of 7 public exchanges that attracted national attention. Lincoln argued that slavery was fundamentally wrong, though he stopped short of calling for immediate abolition, focusing instead on preventing its expansion into new territories. The debates showcased Lincoln's intellect, wit, and capacity to engage in civil yet intense political discourse. While Douglas promoted the idea of popular sovereignty, Lincoln insisted that the nation could not endure, half slave and half free, referencing a phrase from his earlier House divided speech. Although Lincoln ultimately lost the Senate race to Douglas, the debates elevated his profile nationally. Newspapers across the country printed his words, and many Republicans began to view him as a potential presidential candidate, appreciating his blend of moral conviction and political pragmatism. In the years following the debates, Lincoln continued speaking across the country, honing his arguments and broadening his appeal. He carefully positioned himself as a moderate who opposed the expansion of slavery without alienating voters in border states. His speeches, such as the one at Cooper Union in New York in 1860, solidified his reputation as a thoughtful, principled leader. The Republican Party, seeking a candidate who could unite its factions and appeal to the North and West, saw Lincoln as a strong alternative to better-known figures like William H. Seward. The 1860 Republican National Convention in Chicago proved decisive. Lincoln's team skillfully managed his campaign, emphasizing his humble frontier origins, moral character, and ability to connect with ordinary Americans. After several rounds of balloting, he secured the nomination. The general election pitted him against 3 other candidates: Stephen A. Douglas for the Northern Democrats, John C. Breckinridge for the Southern Democrats, and John Bell for the Constitutional Union Party. Lincoln's electoral strategy focused on winning free states, knowing that Southern states were unlikely to support a Republican candidate. Lincoln's election campaign faced fierce opposition from pro-slavery advocates, who warned that his presidency would threaten their way of life. Southern newspapers depicted him as a radical abolitionist, though he repeatedly reassured that he would not interfere with slavery where it already existed. Nevertheless, his commitment to halting its expansion was unacceptable to many in the South. On November 6, 1860, Lincoln won the presidency with less than 40% of the popular vote but a decisive majority in the Electoral College, due to a split Democratic Party. His victory triggered a profound political crisis. Before Lincoln even took office, several Southern states seceded from the Union, beginning with South Carolina in December 1860. By February 1861, 6 more states had followed, forming the Confederate States of America with Jefferson Davis as president. Lincoln faced the unprecedented challenge of assuming the presidency amid national division and looming war. His journey to Washington was marked by both celebration and danger, as there were credible threats to his life. He traveled under guard, arriving in the capital determined to preserve the Union while seeking to avoid outright conflict if possible. On March 4, 1861, Lincoln delivered his first inaugural address, appealing to Southern states to reconsider secession. He emphasized that he had no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery, where it existed, but firmly declared the Union perpetual. His plea for unity was met with skepticism in the South. The standoff came to a head in April, when Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The attack marked the beginning of the American Civil War, thrusting Lincoln into the role of wartime leader during the nation's greatest crisis. The outbreak of war in 1861 transformed Lincoln's presidency overnight. He moved swiftly to mobilize troops, calling for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. His priority was clear: to preserve the Union at all costs. The early months of the war were chaotic, marked by uncertainty, political infighting, and military setbacks. Lincoln faced the enormous challenge of managing not only battlefield strategy but also the competing demands of Congress, military generals, and the public. His ability to remain focused under relentless pressure became one of his defining leadership traits. Lincoln initially appointed General George B. McClellan to command the Union Army, valuing his organizational skills. However, McClellan's caution and reluctance to engage the enemy frustrated the president. Lincoln, though lacking formal military experience, studied strategy intensely, consulting maps and reading military texts to better direct the war effort. He frequently visited the War Department and corresponded directly with generals. The war's first major battle at Bull Run ended in a Confederate victory, shocking the North and shattering illusions that the conflict would be short-lived. Lincoln realized the struggle ahead would be long and costly. As the war progressed, Lincoln faced political pressure from both abolitionists, who demanded immediate emancipation, and conservatives, who feared alienating border states. Initially, he framed the war solely as a fight to preserve the Union, but his personal opposition to slavery never wavered. He carefully timed his moves, understanding that premature action could weaken the war effort. By mid-1862, military stalemate and the need to weaken the Confederacy pushed him toward a bold step, issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory to be free as of January 1, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation transformed the war's moral and political purpose. While it did not immediately free all enslaved individuals, it struck a decisive blow against the Confederacy's labor system and discouraged foreign powers, especially Britain and France, from recognizing the rebel government. The proclamation also allowed African Americans to enlist in the Union Army, leading to the formation of regiments like the 54th Massachusetts. Lincoln faced fierce criticism from Democrats and racists in the North, but he remained steadfast, viewing emancipation as both a moral necessity and a strategic advantage in winning the war. The months following the Emancipation Proclamation were marked by intense military action and shifting fortunes. In July 1863, the Union achieved 2 major victories: the capture of Vicksburg, which gave the North control of the Mississippi River, and the triumph at Gettysburg, which halted Robert E. Lee's invasion of the North. Gettysburg was particularly significant, not only for its military importance but for the address Lincoln delivered there later that year. In just 272 words, His Gettysburg Address redefined the war as a test of whether a nation, conceived in liberty, could endure. Lincoln's leadership during the war was not without controversy. His decision to suspend habeas corpus in certain areas drew accusations of authoritarianism from critics, who argued he was exceeding constitutional limits. Lincoln defended his actions as necessary to suppress rebellion and maintain national security, insisting that extraordinary measures were justified in times of national peril. Despite political opposition, his commitment to both preserving the Union and expanding freedom never wavered. He navigated the delicate balance between military necessity, civil liberties, and public opinion with a pragmatism that often confounded his opponents. In 1864, the war dragged into its fourth year, with casualties mounting and public morale wavering. Many doubted Lincoln's chances for re-election, especially when Union armies appeared stalled. However, a series of decisive victories, particularly General William Tecumseh Sherman's capture of Atlanta, shifted momentum in Lincoln's favor. His Democratic opponent, former General George B. McClellan, campaigned on a platform seeking negotiated peace with the Confederacy, but Lincoln argued that peace could only come through Union victory. The election became a referendum on his leadership, and he won handily, securing a second term. Lincoln's second inaugural address, delivered on March 4, 1865, was one of his most profound speeches. With the war nearing its end, he struck a tone of reconciliation rather than triumph. He acknowledged that slavery was the root cause of the conflict and called for healing, with malice toward none, with charity for all. His words reflected both moral clarity and a deep desire to reunite the fractured nation. Just over a month later, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, effectively ending the Civil War. The Union's victory was monumental, but the challenges of peace would prove equally daunting. Lincoln envisioned a Reconstruction process grounded in leniency toward the South and protection for the newly freed population. He proposed measures to reintegrate Confederate states swiftly while ensuring basic rights for African Americans. His moderate approach faced resistance from radical Republicans who wanted harsher measures and from Southerners unwilling to accept emancipation. Lincoln knew the nation's wounds were deep, but he believed reconciliation was the only path to lasting unity and stability after 4 years of devastating conflict. Tragically, Lincoln would not live to guide the nation through Reconstruction. On the evening of April 14, 1865, just days after Lee's surrender, Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., with his wife Mary and 2 guests. During the performance, Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth slipped into the presidential box and shot Lincoln in the back of the head. Booth fled the scene, setting off a massive manhunt. The wounded president was carried to a nearby boarding house, where doctors worked through the night to save him. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865, Abraham Lincoln died, becoming the first U.S. president to be assassinated. His death plunged the nation into grief, with millions mourning the loss of the leader who had preserved the Union and ended slavery. Lincoln's body lay in state in the Capitol before being transported by funeral train to Springfield, Illinois. Along the route, tens of thousands gathered to pay their respects. His burial in Oak Ridge Cemetery marked the end of a life that had profoundly shaped the course of American history. Lincoln's legacy rests on his extraordinary ability to lead during the nation's most perilous moment. His unwavering commitment to preserving the Union and ending slavery reshaped the United States, embedding the principles of liberty and equality more firmly into its political foundation. The 13th Amendment, passed by Congress in January 1865 and ratified later that year, abolished slavery throughout the country. It stood as the ultimate legal fulfillment of the Emancipation Proclamation and a testament to Lincoln's vision of a nation free from human bondage. Beyond ending slavery, Lincoln transformed the role of the presidency. He expanded executive power to meet the demands of civil war, setting precedents for strong wartime leadership. His ability to communicate complex ideas in simple, resonant language remains unmatched. The Gettysburg Address, the Emancipation Proclamation, and his second inaugural address continue to be studied for their rhetorical brilliance and moral depth. Lincoln's rise from humble beginnings to the highest office embodies the American ideal of self-made success, inspiring generations who believe in the power of perseverance and integrity. Lincoln's approach to leadership blended pragmatism with deep moral conviction. He was willing to adapt tactics to changing circumstances but never lost sight of his core principles. His empathy allowed him to connect with people from all walks of life, whether soldiers, political allies, or ordinary citizens. He was also remarkably self-aware, often using humor to diffuse tension. This combination of political skill, humanity, and resilience has led many historians to rank him among the greatest, if not the greatest, American presidents. His life continues to be a model of public service. Globally, Lincoln's life and leadership have become symbols of democratic resilience. Leaders around the world have drawn inspiration from his ability to navigate internal division while upholding constitutional government. His stance against slavery resonated beyond U.S. borders, reinforcing abolitionist movements worldwide. Lincoln's belief in the universality of human rights continues to influence political discourse, especially in societies grappling with injustice. His example demonstrates that moral courage, coupled with political skill, can transform a nation's destiny even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Yet Lincoln's legacy is not without complexities. While his policies advanced freedom for millions, Reconstruction after his death faltered, leading to decades of racial segregation and disenfranchisement. Critics argue that his moderate stance delayed full equality for African Americans. Nevertheless, his leadership during the Civil War laid the groundwork for future progress. The enduring reverence for Lincoln suggests that, despite imperfections, his vision for America as a united, free, and democratic nation remains a powerful and unifying ideal. His story continues to invite reflection on the nation's ongoing struggle for justice. Memorials to Lincoln reflect his enduring place in the American conscience. The Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., completed in 1922, stands as a national shrine, drawing millions each year. His image appears on the penny and the $5 bill, reminders of his lasting influence. Countless schools, towns, and highways bear his name, reinforcing his status as an integral figure in the nation's identity. Beyond monuments, his speeches and writings remain staples of American education, ensuring that new generations encounter the ideas and values he championed during his lifetime. In historical scholarship, Lincoln's life continues to be examined from multiple perspectives. Biographers explore his political genius, moral growth, and personal struggles, including bouts of depression. Historians analyze his legal career, wartime decisions, and evolving stance on slavery. New research often deepens appreciation for the challenges he faced and the skill with which he met them. The vast body of literature about Lincoln reflects both the complexity of his times and the enduring relevance of his leadership to contemporary issues of governance, justice, and national unity. In the end, Abraham Lincoln's journey from a log cabin in Kentucky to the presidency during America's most profound crisis remains one of the most remarkable narratives in history. His ability to rise above personal hardship, political opposition, and the chaos of civil war to articulate a vision of freedom and unity continues to inspire. His life reminds us that leadership rooted in empathy, guided by principle, and committed to the greater good can shape the destiny of nations. In this, Lincoln's legacy is not just American, it is universal. Lincoln's character was shaped by the hardships of his youth and the moral convictions he developed over a lifetime. Known for honesty, humility, and a strong sense of fairness, he treated friend and foe with respect. His storytelling ability was legendary, often using humor to make complex points accessible. He possessed remarkable patience, rarely reacting impulsively, and preferred to deliberate before making decisions. Though occasionally plagued by melancholy, he drew strength from his belief in the Union's purpose. These qualities combined to make him both approachable and deeply respected as a leader. Physically, Lincoln was distinctive. Standing 6 feet 4 inches tall, he towered over most men of his era. His lanky frame, long limbs, and slightly stooped posture gave him a unique presence. While not conventionally handsome, his expressive face conveyed warmth and sincerity. His deep-set eyes often appeared thoughtful, and his voice, though higher-pitched than many expected, carried well in public speaking. Lincoln's plain, unpretentious manner resonated with ordinary Americans, reinforcing his image as a man of the people. His appearance and demeanor became inseparable from his political identity and public perception. Lincoln's intellectual style blended self-education with practical problem-solving. He read widely, from law books to Shakespeare, and frequently drew on historical examples in speeches. He approached challenges with a lawyer's method, gathering facts, weighing arguments, and testing positions before committing. While he could be firm and decisive, he often sought consensus, valuing different perspectives. This method sometimes frustrated those who wanted quicker action but allowed him to build durable coalitions. His capacity to listen and adapt made him particularly effective in navigating the turbulent political and military landscape of the Civil War. Lincoln's marriage to Mary Todd was both a source of strength and strain. Mary, from a wealthy Kentucky family, was intelligent, politically astute, and ambitious. She supported Lincoln's career but struggled with mood swings and the pressures of public life. The couple endured profound personal loss, with 3 of their 4 sons dying young: Edward in 1850, Willie in 1862, and Tad in 1871, years after Lincoln's death. These tragedies deeply affected them, especially the loss of Willie during the war, which left Mary inconsolable and weighed heavily on Lincoln's already burdened heart. Despite the demands of the presidency, Lincoln maintained affection for his children. He often visited them in the White House, allowing them to play freely, even in his office. This informality shocked some contemporaries but reflected Lincoln's deep love for his family. He enjoyed telling stories to amuse his sons and found comfort in their presence during difficult times. His parenting style was gentle, rarely harsh or authoritarian. The warmth he displayed at home contrasted with the heavy responsibilities and grim realities of leading a nation through its bloodiest conflict. Lincoln's friendships were marked by loyalty and mutual respect. He valued colleagues who challenged him intellectually, even if they disagreed politically. His cabinet famously included rivals, such as William H. Seward and Salmon P. Chase, whose talents he recognized and harnessed for the Union cause. Lincoln also maintained strong bonds with ordinary acquaintances from Illinois, often corresponding with them throughout his presidency. These relationships grounded him, reminding him of the values and experiences that shaped his worldview. His ability to connect personally helped sustain his leadership during moments of intense political and military pressure. At the core of Lincoln's leadership was a belief in preserving the Union as essential to the survival of democracy. He saw the United States not merely as a collection of states but as a nation bound by shared principles. This conviction guided his every decision during the Civil War. He balanced pragmatism with moral purpose, understanding that achieving lasting change required patience and political skill. While he abhorred slavery, he moved carefully to ensure that emancipation strengthened rather than endangered the Union cause. His leadership demonstrated the power of principle tempered by strategy. Lincoln also embraced the idea that leaders must remain accessible and accountable to the people. He regularly met with citizens who visited the White House, listening to their concerns and offering advice or assistance when possible. These encounters reinforced his understanding of the human impact of his policies. He saw public opinion as a critical force in a democracy and sought to shape it through reasoned argument rather than coercion. His respect for democratic institutions, even in wartime, underscored his commitment to governance rooted in the consent of the governed. Another hallmark of Lincoln's leadership was his willingness to learn and adapt. He was not afraid to replace ineffective generals or revise military strategies when results lagged. He encouraged innovation, supporting new technologies like the telegraph for rapid communication and ironclad ships for naval warfare. His openness to change contrasted with leaders who clung rigidly to established methods. This adaptability extended to politics as well, where he adjusted his messaging to address evolving public sentiment while staying true to his fundamental goals. Lincoln's flexibility was a key factor in the Union's eventual success. Lincoln's speeches remain among the most studied in American history for their clarity, brevity, and moral power. The Gettysburg Address distilled the purpose of the Civil War into a few sentences, invoking the Declaration of Independence's principles and urging the nation to commit to a new birth of freedom. Its enduring influence lies in its universal appeal to equality and democratic endurance. By framing the war as a test of the nation's founding ideals, Lincoln elevated the conflict beyond politics, making it a moral struggle with implications for all humanity. His second inaugural address stands out for its humility and depth. Delivered as the war neared its end, it avoided triumphalism and instead reflected on the shared responsibility for slavery's existence and the war it caused. Lincoln spoke of divine justice and the need for healing, offering a vision of reconciliation, with malice toward none, with charity for all. This speech revealed Lincoln's ability to combine political leadership with moral reflection, setting a tone for national recovery that, though tragically cut short by his assassination, still resonates as a model for post-conflict governance. The Emancipation Proclamation, while technically an executive order, also functioned as a landmark public statement. It redefined the Union's war aims, transforming the struggle from a fight solely for national unity into a battle for human liberty. By linking the Union cause to emancipation, Lincoln ensured that victory would carry a moral as well as political legacy. The proclamation's language, though legalistic, carried profound weight, signaling a decisive shift in American values. It remains a testament to Lincoln's ability to use presidential authority to advance both strategic and ethical objectives. During Lincoln's presidency, foreign governments closely watched the American Civil War, particularly Britain and France, which had economic ties to the Confederacy through cotton imports. Lincoln's skillful diplomacy, supported by Secretary of State Seward, prevented European recognition of the Confederacy. The Emancipation Proclamation played a crucial role by making the war a fight against slavery, making it politically difficult for countries that had abolished slavery to side with the South. Lincoln's foreign policy maintained U.S. sovereignty during its internal crisis, preserving the Union's international standing and demonstrating the resilience of democratic governance. Lincoln's reputation abroad grew significantly after his death. In Britain, he was praised by reformers and working-class movements for his anti-slavery stance. Across Europe, his life story, rising from humble beginnings to national leadership, became a symbol of opportunity and meritocracy. In later decades, his example influenced political figures and liberation movements worldwide. Statues of Lincoln stand in cities from London to Mexico City, underscoring his global stature. His name and image have come to represent integrity, perseverance, and the defense of freedom far beyond America's borders. Abraham Lincoln's life offers enduring lessons on the nature of leadership, the importance of moral clarity, and the necessity of resilience in the face of adversity. He demonstrated that it is possible to confront a nation's deepest flaws while working within its democratic framework. His combination of empathy, strategic thinking, and unshakable purpose enabled him to guide the United States through its greatest trial. The ideals he championed, unity, liberty, and equality, remain central to the American identity and continue to inspire those who strive to create a more just society. More than 150 years after his death, Lincoln's words and deeds still shape political discourse. His belief in government, of the people, by the people, for the people, remains a guiding principle for democratic societies worldwide. While the challenges of his time were unique, the values he upheld are timeless. Lincoln's life reminds us that leadership grounded in humility, guided by principle, and committed to the greater good can transform a nation's destiny. His story is not just history, it is a call to action for every generation that follows.